Hello, everyone, and welcome to Movie Goodness, where we examine life through cinema here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed. Welcome, everyone, to the show. I wish it was under better circumstances, but I'm glad that you are here nonetheless. Today is a somber episode. I really don't like doing these episodes, like this, but I was compelled to do it because this actor, I don't think got the flowers he deserved. I don't think got the respect that he rightfully deserved. He did in the circles of Hollywood and whatnot, and all the work that he had contributed to. But I mean it like in the mainstream. He hasn't been or wasn't considered an A-list actor in a lot of circles, but he was A-list to me. He's one of those guys that I just adored him in every single film that he was in. I don't care if it was a bit part, supporting role, or even in the lead. Occasionally, when he did get the lead, he was just one of those guys that you would gravitate to. In case you don't know, on July the 13th, the early morning of July the 13th, it was announced that the great Sam Neill passed away at the age of 78 years old. And Sam Neill has a filmography like no other. You can go down his filmography, and it's like none of those movies are one and the same. He did not just stick in one genre. He was all over the place. I don't care if it was a drama, an adventure film, a comedy, action adventure film, horror films. He excelled in them all, and I think that's what made him special to me. I think that's why he just stuck out to me, because if he was in something, it wasn't like you went into it like, oh, this is going to be just like he was in Jurassic Park. No. Or this is going to be like he was in The Hunt for Red October. No. He would constantly reinvent himself. He would constantly challenge himself, and he excelled everywhere he went. I can't think of a performance he gave where he melded in, even in the small role that he had in Thor Ragnarok, where he played Odin, a actor portraying Odin in that film. He was good in that, and it was only for one scene, but it just added something to the film. It's just something about him that I'm going to miss. And he is highly decorated. I say he didn't get his flowers. He's a decorated actor. No Academy Awards, but he was truly recognized all over the film industry as one of the greats, and I think he needs to be remembered as such. Sir Nigel John Dermot Sam Neill. And that was his name. And I often wondered, because when he was knighted, I think that was in the 90s when he was knighted, they said his name, and I'm like, well, where does Sam come from? I don't know. I guess that was a nickname or something like that, but that was his name, and he was from New Zealand, born and raised from New Zealand. Aside from being an actor, he was also a businessman as well. But he was a leading man in film and television. He did get nominated for 3 Primetime Emmy Awards, 2 Golden Globe Awards, and as I mentioned before, he was appointed as an officer of the Order of British Empire in 1991 by the Queen for his services as an actor. So he was recognized, but I just wish he was recognized more, as just one of those go-to actors, because you can rely on him to come and give you his all. That now the movies, not all the movies were great. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh man, he was in just some bangers, 5-star classics. Uh, he was in a few, but not all of them were great, but he was great. And today, instead of just going over his life and what all he accomplished in his life, I decided to do a short little show today and count down my top 5 Sam Neill films or his performances in those films. Now, this top 5 is not to say that these were the just greatest films in his filmography, but these are my favorite performances by him. And it was tough to narrow it down because I left off some that I felt were superior films, but I enjoyed his performance in X film rather than Y film. So it was I made it tough on myself. I'm just gonna tell you like that. I made it hard on myself for no reason whatsoever. I could have just gave my list of my favorite Sam Neill films, which is basically what this list is, but they're my favorites because of the performance that he gave. But I will go through his whole filmography. This was his whole filmography, and it goes all the way back. I wasn't even thought of in 1975. Landfall, Ash in 1977, Sleeping Dogs in 1979, Just Reach Out, The Journalist, My Brilliant Career in 1981, The Omen 3, The Final Conflict, Possession, From a Far Country in 1982, Attack Force Z in 1984, The Blood of Others, The Country Girls in 1985, Robbery, Under Arms, and Plenty in 1986, For Love Above in 1987, The Umbrella Woman in 1988, Leap of Faith, also in 1988, Evil Angels in 1989, Dead Calm in 1990, The Hunt for Red October, Shadow of China in 1991, Death Brunrick, Until the End of the World in 1992, Memoirs of an Invisible Man, Hostage in 1993, The Piano, Jurassic Park, and Sirens in 1994, Country Life, The Jungle Book, In the Mouth of Madness in 1995, Restoration in 1996, Children of the Revolution, and Victory in 1997, Event Horizon, Snow White, A Tale of Terror. I've never seen that one. I gotta check that one out. In 1998, The Horse Whisperer and Sweet Revenge in 1999, Bicentennial Man. In the year 2000, My Mother Frank, The Dish, The Magic Puddin'. In 2001, Jurassic Park 3, The Zookeeper. In 2002, Dirty Deeds. In 2003, Perfect Strangers. In 2004, Yes. In Wembley. In 2005, Little Fish. In 2006, Irresistible. In 2007, Angel. In 2008, Dean Spankley and Skin. In 2009, In Her Skin, Iron Road, Under the Mountain, Daybreakers. In 2010, Legend of the Guardians, The Owls of Gahul. In 2011, The Dragon Pearl, The Hunter. In 2012, The Vow. In 2013, Escape Plan, The Adventurer, The Curse of the Minus Box. In 2014, United Passions and A Long Way Down. In 2015, Backtrack and The Daughter. In 2016, Hunt of the Wilder People and Tommy's Honor. In 2017, Mind Gamers, Sweet Country, and Thor Ragnarok. In 2018, The Commuter and Peter Rabbit. In 2019, Palm Beach, Blackbird, Ride Like a Girl, and Take Home Pay. In 2020, Rams. In 2021, Peter Rabbit 2, The Runaway. In 2022, Jurassic World Dominion and Thor Love and Thunder. In 2023, The Portable Door, Assassin Club, Scary Girl, and Bring Him to Me. In 2025, The Fox. And we got 2 movies that he completed before his passing coming out next year. In 2027, upcoming, you have Godzilla vs. Kong, Supernova, and The Last Resort. Those were his final films he did. Like I said, very diverse filmography. He did everything from family films to just gore out horror movies. He did every genre you can think of. But out of all of those films, I had to narrow that down to 5. And believe it or not, it was hard. It was very hard to narrow down my favorite 5 performances from the great Sam Neill. And so starting off at number 5, this comes in number 5 because of it was a small role for him. You know, he didn't have a big role, but it was big nonetheless because he was the second in command on this submarine under Sean Connery. And I loved how up to that point, you know, you didn't see Sean Connery being challenged like that because that was Sean Connery, man. This is James Bond, you know, and he was the voice of reason on that submarine. And that is, of course, the Hunt for Red October. And he was the one that kind of brought Sean Connery's character down to earth, you know, this bombastic character, this larger than life figure, not only in the Russian military, but globally. Everybody revered this character. And he was so powerful, you know, so well respected that nobody really messed with him. No one really challenged him. And Sam Neill in that role had to be the one to talk him down, to be the one to tell him, no, you're wrong. No, we can't do it like this. You know, you can't do this, Captain. He was the one. And I thought he bounced well off of him in that film, perfectly cast. That was just an amazing movie altogether. And it was hard to put that at 5, but the reason it's at 5 because it's not a bigger role than it is in the other 4 that I'm going to list here. But he is phenomenal in that role. Coming in at number 4 is, I don't know what you would. This is like the guiltiest of guilty pleasures for me. And the reason, let me give you a little backstory before I spill the beans on what it is. I worked at a movie theater the year this came out. So when I'm there and this movie comes out, and I'm like, what is this? You know, and I was an usher, so we would go in, and that's how I got to see a lot of movies around that era. I would be for nothing, for free. Basically, I was getting paid to watch it. It was a beautiful thing. But I stood in there and watched this movie, and this was the scariest movie I've seen set in space. And I know Aliens is probably everybody's premium horror space movie, but for me, Event Horizon was the movie that was like, I've never seen a haunted spaceship movie. You know, you ever think about that? It's a haunted spaceship movie. The ship was haunted, in space, and you're drifting in space. And uh, Sam Neill's character is the scientist who virtually built this ship, and it was to pass through different dimensions. It was supposed to bend space and time to get across the galaxy quicker, or on the other side of the universe quicker, and whatever. And what it did, it tore the fabric of space. So when the ship first left and it miraculously came back years later, come to find out the ship went to hell. And it came back. And so when the rescue crew came, and Sam Neill's on there because he knows the ship, that's his ship. And he was a part of this team that goes on this ship. Hell was on the ship with him, you know, and it was the freak. It's still to this day my go-to horror movie, like around Halloween. You know, it's something about that movie that just appeals to me. Yeah, it wasn't a big box office smash hit, but it is a cult classic. It is a movie that holds up still to this day, because I watched it recently. Within the last 2 or 3 months, I've seen it, and it still holds up to me. It still has that same flair. And Sam Neill's character in here has the biggest arc, even though he isn't the star. Lawrence Fishburne is the star of the movie, but Sam Neill's character has the biggest arc, and not in a good way, because he starts off as a good guy. He's a decent guy, and he's just trying to figure out what happened on this ship. This was his baby, you know, this was his life's work. And he wasn't like one of those slimy type figures that like, oh, this is my ship, you know, this pompous guy. That's not his approach to it, you know. He was beholden to the captain, who was Lawrence Fishburne, and the crew, and gave them the respect, gave them the lead, because this is their mission. But he was still searching for answers and trying to find out where this has been, because at the end of the day, he is a scientist. You know, he wants to see if his experiment worked. Where did the ship go? And everybody else is like, man, do you see what's going on around you? This ship has been somewhere it shouldn't have went, and wherever it went, it brought it back with us. You know, so he started off as a good guy, and to ultimately end up as the villain, the ultimate antagonist at the end. And for him to make that turn was great. I love Event Horizon, and I love Sam Neill in this movie. And I had no business loving him in this movie like this. I have no business loving this movie that much. But hey, it happened. Yeah, Event Horizon is number 4 on my list. Coming in at number 3, which I know is going to turn a lot of people's heads and probably turn off this episode, but I'm glad you joined me this far. But coming in at number 3 is Jurassic Park. Yes, it's at 3. It's at 3. And it's not because the movie's bad. I mean, it's Jurassic Park. Like I told you before, this is not a list of the best movies. You know, this was my list of Sam Neill's best contribution to the film. You go to Jurassic Park for the dinosaurs. It wasn't because of Sam Neill. And let's be honest, a lot of people didn't know who Sam Neill was before Jurassic Park, even though he was in a plethora of films and television shows. You didn't know who Sam Neill was. Matter of fact, this role wasn't even written for him. This was written for Harrison Ford, but Harrison Ford turned it down. And so they went to Sam Neill. And for the first time, and probably the only time, I felt that was the best decision. And not to say that Harrison Ford wouldn't have crushed it. Yeah, he, you know, even though he was basically playing Indiana Jones again, but Sam Neill was perfect for this role. Perfect for this role. To be this archaeologist who hates children and gets stuck on this adventure with children, you know, and in charge of protecting these children from these dinosaurs, you know. And who better to protect these children from dinosaurs but an archaeologist who's been studying dinosaurs his entire life. And, you know, I love his arc in this one. Hating kids, didn't want them around him, didn't want them in the same, want to be in the same car with him at the beginning of this movie. But by the end, when they're all leaving the island on a helicopter and he's hugging the kids and making sure they're safe and everything, it was beautiful, man. I know we all were distracted by the pretty dinosaurs in it, but it was a beautiful story with Sam Neill and his progression throughout this film to want to protect these children at all costs, as opposed to the Alan Grant in the beginning of this film, who probably would have fed the children to the dinosaurs if he had the chance. But I loved him in it, and yes, it comes in at number 3, and it comes in at number 3 because number 1 and number 2 are far superior performances, not because of the movie, but because of the performances, and they're just my favorites, and it's my list, so I could do that. And so Jurassic Park comes in at number 3. Coming in at number 2, this was my first exposure to Sam Neill. I didn't know who Sam Neill was when I saw this movie, and it's still to this day one of the creepiest movies that I've seen in my life. Really, I'm if I was to rank thrillers, psychological thrillers, this would probably be top 10. And it is Dead Calm from 1989. I remember watching this movie, and this stars not only Sam Neill, but you have a young Nicole Kidman who plays his wife in this movie, and Billy Zane, who this was my first time being exposed to him at that time. And so you get these three actors before they're big, at least in my eyes, because I was 11, 10 or 11, and you was 10 and 11 years old watching Dead Calm. Look, don't tell mom, but yeah, I did. I watched, snuck and watched it. This was amazing. This was an amazing movie. I love movies that are claustrophobic, even though I am claustrophobic. I guess that's why I'm drawn to movies like that, because when you're in a confined space, in a situation that you do not want to be a part of, you wish, when you sit back and watch movies and you're like, man, I'm glad that's not me. You're in a good movie. They hooked you, they got you, and I'm glad that wasn't me. They're on a boat with this psychopath, and Sam Neill gets separated from his wife off this boat. He gets thrown off the boat, so his wife is stuck on this ship, on this yacht, I should say. Not even a yacht. It's just a boat, a nice boat. And he being Sam Neill, he manages to get to the other ship that this guy came from, and come to find out that the psychopath killed everybody on that boat and is sinking. And so the whole movie, or at least a majority of the movie, Sam Neill is trying to repair this boat. Now I think he's in the Australian Navy or something like that, or was in the Australian Navy, something of that nature. But he knows nautical stuff, so he's managing to get this ship functional enough to get back to that boat where his wife is stuck on with this psychopath. I loved this movie. Everybody in this movie was great, but Sam Neill impressed me so much. And like I said, this was my first time being exposed to him. Me being young at this time, I was like, man, this dude need to be in more movies. I just had to wait a couple of years and he would have been running from dinosaurs, but he was amazing in this movie. The movie within itself is amazing, and I would still sit down and watch it today. I haven't seen it in so long, and this is one of the movies that immediately thought of when I read the news about Sam Neill's passing. I was like, man, dead calm, because everybody kept throwing up pictures of him as Alan Grant from Jurassic Park, of course, because that's his most popular, successful film. But my mind just immediately went to this, because this is my first time seeing him on the screen and being impressed by his performance and his stillness, as taking command of the screen like he did. I love this movie. Love it. I do plan to watch it in the very near future because I haven't seen it in such a while. But yeah, this comes in at number 2, Dead Calm. Coming in at number 1 is a movie that look, once again, it's not about the quality of the movie. We're just focusing on performance here. And this is, in my humble opinion, my favorite. Not saying it's his best, but this is my favorite Sam Neill performance. And the reason this is my favorite Sam Neill performance is because he literally had to put this film on his back the entire movie. We follow him the entire movie, and he has to narrate or navigate, I should say, the audience through this crazy H.P. Lovecraft insanity of a movie. And it is the 1994 John Carpenter directed film In the Mouth of Madness. This was during an era when John Carpenter was making these weird, low-budget horror movies, and for some strange reason, it appealed to me. Those movies, like Prince of Darkness and They Live and stuff like that. I love those John Carpenter movies. Of course, I love The Thing and Christine and Halloween and all that other good stuff. But it was in this small little window in the early 90s, really mid 80s to the early 90s, where John Carpenter was just spitting hot fire, man. He was doing some wacky, crazy stuff. And In the Mouth of Madness was probably the most insane John Carpenter movie he ever made. Sam Neill plays the lead in this movie, and he's an insurance investigator, and he goes to this small town to investigate the disappearance of this successful author of horror novels. And then he begins to question his sanity throughout. So, because the lines between reality and fiction start to blur, the deeper he digs into this author, who turns out to be whatever he was, Satan or whatever. So, you literally watch him go insane as the movie goes on. And you go insane following him. The movie really, really disturbed me. I guess that's why it sticked out the most to me, because Sam Neill's character really goes through the ringer in this movie, mentally and physically in some sort. I mean, driven insane. And Sam Neill played it so well. I don't know. I don't know if it's because it's John Carpenter or it's a horror movie, and a lot of people frown upon those type of movies, as far as awards and accolades are concerned. But bruh, his performance in the Mouth of Madness was bananas. You hear stories about, like with Heath Ledger playing the Joker, how that played into his psyche, which led to his demise, which we find out that wasn't 100% true, it going off of interviews for people, like, no, that's not what happened. They were like, when the director cut, he was back to being Heath Ledger. He didn't really go full method as the Joker. But You hear stories about people uh diving into their roles really hard and really going insane because of the material, or not really going insane. I'm embellishing, but you know, it affects them mentally. They got to take a break, you know, because this was heavy. And you watch a movie like this and what Sam Neill went through during the course of this film was insane. And of course it would drive him crazy because it was driving me crazy watching it. And at the end, just to see at the end that nothing was resolved, you know, that he really did go insane. And Sam Neill just going full in on this, man. He did not mail this in at all. You know, those postage stamps stayed on his desk. He dove head first into this role. It's my favorite Sam Neill performance. Not my favorite Sam Neill film, but my favorite performance from Sam Neill. I really enjoyed him in The Mouth of Madness. But those are my top 5 Sam Neill performances. Uh, like I said, I just wanted to chat about him a little while because I loved Sam Neill. I'm gonna miss Sam Neill. He's an actor that, you know, I guess the reason it hits so hard is he's one of those actors that you just didn't expect to go nowhere, you know, or one of those people you expect to be around forever, you know, because he played such a big part of at least my life growing up. I dating all the way back to when I was a preteen. You know, I've been watching him on the string and, you know, seeing him in low budget things, seeing him in big budget things, and seeing him pop up in the MCU and seeing him on television and seeing him in a comedy and all that. He's just been a part of my life. And he's one of those ones I took for granted that it will be around forever. And sadly, forever ended today. When he passed away at the age of 79. Sam Neill, oddly enough, just beat cancer as early as April of this year when he reported that he went to the doctor. They found no traces of cancer in him. He was fighting this blood cancer, this leukemia, however you pronounce it, for years. He was diagnosed with that, and he went through chemo and all that there. And finally, in April, after his chemotherapy stopped working, he went and did this new cell therapy in Australia on a trial run, and they found no cancer in his body. And then here we are in July. He passed away unexpectedly, suddenly, you know, and it just goes to show you never know. You never know what it is. You think that is one thing you've been dealing with for quite a while, and it could be something else, you know. And that's why you constantly got to get checked up, constantly got to take care of yourself. And not to say that he wasn't. We don't know at least the time of this recording, we don't know what was the cause, but you know, you want to prolong your life as long as you can. So make sure you're getting checked, make sure you're going to your screenings, make sure you're going to your doctor regularly and getting your checkups, your blood work, and all that good stuff. So yeah, man, we lost a good one. Sam Neill, may he rest in peace. I would like to know, what was your favorite Sam Neill film? Was it any of the ones I listed, or was it another one? Another one. I mean, there's no wrong answers. I think all of his performances were great, but I would love to know your favorite Sam Neill performance. Let me know. You can subscribe to the kbradionetwork.com website, where you can get notified of all new episodes that drop on that site. Also on YouTube, subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever You are currently listening to Movie Goodness here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me as we looked back and reminisced on the great Sam Neill. Rest in peace. I want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.